Welcome to Best Practices and Experiences for Transnational Learning, Integration and Language Learning. This is not just a podcast. It is an exploration of innovative ways to empower migrant children and their families. The AMIF Fund supports the initiative as part of the SCHOOLinHUB project aimed at creating a more welcoming society, proud to protect children's rights, and a more inclusive school as a cultural hub able to lead preschool children with a migrant background in learning a new language. Join us on this exciting journey to discover good practices that create connections between different countries.
Hello, I'm Panagiotta Kapsali. I'm working at the Greek Forum of Refugees. In this podcast, in this episode, within the framework of the European program AMIF, SCHOOLinHUB, we will address the issue of the integration of migrant and refugee children concerning language learning. We will discuss the integration of immigrant children into the Greek education system and the Greek reality. We will also refer to the educational system as well as the integration system at a practical level. We are joined by Mr. Vasiliadis and Mr. Stephanopoulos, who have both worked extensively with refugees and migrants. Mr. Konstantinos Vasiliadis has been serving as an education consultant in Eastern Thessaloniki since August 2023. He has many years of experience in primary education and work as a teacher in schools in South Australia. He has served as a principal of primary school of Evasmus Thessaloniki. He was also the refugee education coordinator at the Diavata Refugee Reception Center. He holds a PhD in citizenship education and a master's degree in intercultural education, both from Aristotelis University of Thessaloniki. He has participated in European programs and have taught in university departments. His research interests include intercultural education and citizenship education. Mr. George Stephanopoulos is a project manager of GFR. His academic background is on international and European studies with MA in European Studies, Diversity and Integration. His expertise is in advocacy, and he has undertaken several projects regarding civic and political inclusion of refugees and migrants, works with and supports refugee communities, knowing issues related to their integration at all levels. Hello, Mr. Vasiliadis.
Hello.
What the main goals of the Greek educational system are when it comes to migrant students?
The Greek educational system aims to ensure equal access to quality education for all children, regardless of their background. For migrant students specifically, the key goals include facilitating language acquisition, promoting cultural integration, and supporting social inclusion. The school becomes not just a place of learning, but also a getaway for socialization and participation in the whole society. Ultimately, the goal is to empower migrant students so they can succeed academically, integrate socially, and become active citizens.
What exactly are reception classes and how do they support migrant children?
Well, reception classes are a crucial part of Greece's inclusive education policy. They are specially designed programs within mainstream schools that focus on teaching the Greek language intensively to non-native speakers. These students attend reception classes for several hours per day and gradually integrate into regular subjects like mathematics, history, and science. The goal is to provide a supportive environment that bridges the linguistic gap and allows for a smoother academic and social transition.
What are some of the most common challenges migrant students face in Greek schools?
Well, migrant students often face multiple and intersecting challenges. First and foremost is the language barrier, which can make it difficult to follow lessons and communicate with peers or teachers. Social isolation or even discrimination can also occur, particularly in schools with less experience in diversity. In addition, many migrant families face economic hardship, and some children may have interrupted or limited previous education. These factors can affect attendance, academic performance, and emotional well-being. Finally, frequent collisions, especially among refugee families, can disrupt their educational continuity.
What about the parents? What are the most common challenges that migrant parents face in relation to Greek schools?
Well, the most significant obstacle is language barriers. Many migrant parents do not speak or understand Greek, making communication with teachers, school staff, or other parents very difficult. As a result, they often miss important announcements, parent-teacher meetings, or struggle to help with homework. Another challenge is the lack of familiarity with with the education system. Many migrant families come from countries with very different educational structures. They often don't understand how the Greek school system works, including enrollment processes, school schedules, and holidays, expectations regarding parental involvement or grading systems. Another thing may occur with limited digital literacy, especially during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. Many schools shifted to digital communication, for example, emails, e-class platforms, and etc. Some parents lack digital skills or access to technology, make it harder to stay informed or support remote learning. Another challenge is about cultural differences and trust issues. Some migrant parents may have experienced trauma or state mistrust in their home countries. As a result, they may be hesitant to engage with school authorities. Additionally, cultural misunderstandings, for example, views on discipline, gender roles, or education methods, can lead to miscommunication. Another challenge is discrimination or social exclusion. In some areas, parents report feeling unwelcome or ignored by school communities, and there may be implicit biases or lack of intercultural training among staff that limits meaningful engagement with diverse families.
Are there any national or international programs that help support migrant integration through education in Greece?
Well, yes, there are several initiatives that have been implemented. At the national level, the Ministry of Education runs programs such as reception classes and zones of educational priority, ZEP1 or ZEP2. These zones offer engaged support in schools with high numbers of migrant or socially disadvantaged students. On the international level, Greece collaborates with organizations like UNICEF and the European Union, which provide funding, training for teachers, educational materials, and social support services. NGOs also play a vital role, offering afternoon classes, language lessons, and community support.
And what about teachers? What role do teachers play in the integration process?
Well, as we all know, teachers are absolutely central to the success of integration. Beyond delivering the curriculum, they serve as cultural mediators and emotional anchors for migrant students. They need to adapt their teaching methods to diverse classrooms, apply inclusive pedagogies, and be sensitive to students' experiences, some of whom may have fled conflict or experienced trauma. Professional development programs and intercultural training are essential to equip teachers with the skills and tools necessary for this role. Moreover, building strong relationships with the families of migrant students engages trust and encourages collaboration.
About migrants and the new society here in Greece, how do migrants adapt to a new society in Greece?
Well, migrants in Greece adapt to the host society through a combination of formal and informal processes. Key areas of adaptation include language acquisition, often through formal classes or self-learning, employment, particularly in sectors like agriculture, construction, and domestic work, in education, especially for children, which services as a bridge to integration, through community networks, both ethnic and local, and access to public services, including healthcare, legal support, and housing. Adaptation is often gradual and influenced by individual resilience, legal status, and support mechanism. Social integration tends to be stronger in urban centers like Athens and Thessaloniki, where more programs and migrant communities exist.
About challenges, do they face challenges and what programs are in place to help them settle and thrive?
Well, I think that legal uncertainty is the main challenge, especially for asylum seekers and undocumented migrants. As we mentioned before, language barriers making daily life and employment harder, discrimination and xenophobia in some parts of Greek society. Another issue is housing instability and poor living conditions, for example, overcrowded shelters, and access to healthcare, which can be limited for uninsured or undocumented individuals. About the programs that are in place, we can mention Helios integration program that helps recognize refugees with rental subsidies, language training and employment support. Maybe we can say also Greek language courses offered by NGOs and public institutions. Another program is Estia 2 program by Greek government and offers housing and cash assistance to asylum seekers. I think this program is stopped now. I'm not very sure about this. As far as I can say, some of the above programs that I mentioned before are in the process of being redefined.
Mr. Vasiliadis, does the Greek educational system support migrants and how?
Well, the Greek education system has implemented several mechanisms to support the integration of migrant and refugee children. As we mentioned before, reception classes offer intensive Greek language support alongside partial integration into regular subjects. Also, in Greece, we have intercultural schools. These schools have a more diverse curriculum and are specially designed for multicultural student populations. Another thing is second chance schools for adolescents and adults who missed formal education. School mediators and intercultural mediators facilitate communication between families and schools. And of course, European funded programs like education of refugee children, for example, by the University of Athens, which provide additional teachers and support materials in refugee camps or hotspots. Also, I can mention the University of Thessaloniki. The Ministry of Education works in collaboration with international partners like UNICEF and NGOs to provide resources, teacher training, and psychosocial support, as we mentioned before.
Mr. Vasiliadis, one more question for you. How effective is the Greek education system for immigrants?
Well, the effectiveness of the Greek educational system for immigrants is, we can say, mixed. There are some strengths and some weaknesses. To start with the strengths, policies exist to guarantee universal access to education. As we mentioned before, reception classes and ZEP schools target vulnerable populations. And another strength is the collaboration with international organizations that improves in capacity. About the weaknesses, we face some implementation gaps, like not all schools have resources to run a reception classes effectively. Uneven quality, as we mentioned before, urban areas are better equipped than rural regions. Limited monitoring and evaluation of migrant student progress, and refugee children that living in camps or temporarily shelters often face more exclusions. Overall, while Greece has made significant progress, especially since 2015, systemic challenges remain. The system is functional, but still not fully inclusive or adaptive to all migrants' children's needs.
Hello, Mr. Stephanopoulos.
Hello. Thank you for having me here.
Let's start with the first question. What are the primary challenges faced by migrants and refugees during their integration into Greek society?
Well, before I answer, I want to say that Mr. Vasiliadis actually covered a lot of things that I would answer on my own. He really cut into the bone of the matter and gave us information that are exquisite. Now, about the challenges faced by migrants and refugees regarding education. First of all, of course, it's the language barrier, and that's the foremost. And because of that, all the other problems start getting ground. You do have the cultural differences, and because of those two, you do have limited employment opportunities, and this goes mostly to the parents. Because if they're not employed, if they cannot get a salary, it's more difficult to sustain their families, which entails social isolation, discrimination in all parts because of these misunderstandings and the language barrier. But most importantly, on education, it's above all, it's the bureaucratic hurdles in obtaining a legal status or in having access to services to enroll your children to school. All this bureaucracy is kind of foreign to the refugees and the migrants. As Mr. Vasiliadis said, they come from other cultures with a different approach in deadlines, for example, in enrolling requirements and all that stuff. So yeah, the challenges are many, and unfortunately, we have a long way into addressing those issues.
What about the access to education system? Can you tell us more specifically something about that?
Well, it's true that the Greek government provides access to public schools for migrant children and refugee children. However, the challenges remain regarding language acquisition and inclusion in mainstream classrooms. And after all, it depends sometimes on where you are, your status, and your actual access. For example, asylum seekers are usually reside in camps. They do not live in major cities or even minor cities in that sense. The camps are situated mostly, if not all of them, are situated outside major cities, in the mountains, in the forests, and there's no buses or other means of transportation in order for them to have access to schools. Okay, so at that point, you have either NGOs or other organizations that collaborate with the state that try to have like makeshift schools inside the camps, which it's between formal and informal education, though. The children are not socializing with children from the host society, with other Greek children, or are not in the same classes in that case. Then you have the recognized refugees, for example, that are living in cities. However, they do face the language barriers, the deadline issues, the enrollment issues. They need to understand how things work in Greece regarding access to education for the children. So you have a totally different issue there. Although they do have accents, they don't have the information, they don't have the knowledge of the language in order to follow what has to be done for the enrollment. They do have their own cultural differences. For example, the Ramadan period, okay, which clearly affects the way they eat, the way they don't drink water all day. So you have children in this kind of situation in schools. There are many issues. So we need, in order to be specific about the access to education, we need to be specific about who we're talking about. There are undocumented migrants, for example, that have no access at all, and it's a big, well, it's a big number. It's a considerable number of undocumented people that are residing in Greece for various reasons. So yes, access to education, but for whom?
Mr. Stephanopoulos, you mentioned before as a challenge the cultural issue. How do cultural differences impact social cohesion between migrants, refugees, and in school environment?
Well, I think we overfocus on cultural differences. Yes, of course, there are cultural misunderstandings that can lead to tension from both sides. However, intercultural dialogue initiates a helps to bridge the gaps between the two communities, and through those you can promote mutual understanding on what's going on. If you allow yourself to uh, understand the other culture or to listen about the other culture, and at the end we're not so different in many things. So I believe, yes, it's an obstacle, but only in our mind. If you get to meet the other side, you'll see that those differences diminish. Okay, and diminishes a lot, and you'll find more similarities rather than differences in the end.
And what about the parents from your experience? What's your opinion regarding the parents of immigrant children in supporting their education?
Now, again, this is a multi-layered topic. Of course, parents will support their children's education, and they will strive to do their best in order to get their children educated. However, we have to keep in mind that Greece is always a transit country still. So you have people coming in knowing that one day they will leave this country, and in some cases, as soon as possible. So they wouldn't rely on the Greek educational system. They will try other means in order to learn the languages that they will need in the future. English would be one, German would be another, French, another language that will help them to their final destination. You have obviously this side. So they wouldn't put too much effort into sending children to Greek schools, even if it's a bit complicated, then they won't consider it at all. They will try though informal education in English from NGOs, in English, in German, in mathematics, in other topics for the overall education of their children. But that, however, does not encourage the access to the Greek educational system. Now there are various other organizations. The other thing, before I say what I had in mind, is that you have if the parents cannot survive, if they're living off benefits only, okay, if they don't have a job, then it's more difficult for them to support the education of their children. And especially in the Greek system, which you need tutorial classes also after class. Uh, um, the school cannot support their education for the exam. That's not cannot prepare children for the exams, even the Greek ones. Okay, they need to go to tutorials. That is not an optional decision for a refugee parent to make. Uh, Only if we think about the financial damage that this will bring to the family. So yeah, they rely on NGOs, they rely on solidarity movements. There are schools from solidarity associations that are doing also work in that. I'm a volunteer in one of those, the Open School of Migrants of Piraeus. And you see that it's people are coming in with their children and trust as a tutorial, as off school, off the main school activities. They do have these solidarity schools in order for extra lessons for their children. So there is a network that will support, and the parents will seek this kind of solutions. But again, it's very difficult for them to, especially if they're unemployed, to properly support the education of their children. And those, of course, the last ones are for the people that decide to stay in Greece and live in Greece. As for the first ones that we mentioned, the only thing they will try to find are lessons that will help the children survive in the destination country they have in mind.
For the end, looking ahead, what policies or strategies would you recommend to enhance the long-term integration of migrants and refugees in Greece?
I strongly believe that policies should focus on comprehensive integration strategies that include language education and labor market access reforms to help the parents, because it's not only about the children, as we said before. We need profound anti-discrimination measures. I believe that our community is not, it's very extreme sometimes with cultural differences, in lack of any other words. So we do need anti-discrimination measures to educate also our people on these issues. We need community building activities to bring people together, and an ongoing evaluation of what we're doing. Because if something doesn't work, we have to stop it and rethink about it and relaunch it anew. But the first thing in my mind that we have to do is to abolish this camp strategy, because this leads to ghettos. Because the people are not getting the education, some of them will stay in Greece. They are far away from cities. Okay, they're going to form little villages, small towns with their own language there. Nobody will be able to speak proper Greek there because they won't have access to the educational systems. We need to bring people into the cities to have a proper integration process, like other countries have best practices that we can borrow, rethink, reevaluate, and launch. This strategy so far that we're following, the only thing that it does is separate people, and not giving the opportunity for one community to meet the other, talk with each other, abolish their differences, and walk together towards a common future. And if a common future is on our mind when we're building these policies, this will be a win-win situation for everyone.
Thank you both for being with us, for the information you provided, and for sharing your experiences and knowledge with us from different perspectives. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you for sharing your precious time with us. Keep in touch and follow the updates on the website www.schoolinhubproject.eu. Stay tuned and help us with your suggestions to build a more inclusive society.